Welcome back to IMG Academy's crash course, AP Government and Economics Edition. I'm your host, Sam Parks, and today I've brought to you two special guests, Corey Chung, the man who created the subject Government and Economics, along with former President Alex Higa. Today's topic is the Supreme Court case Marbury versus Madison. In this case, some big decisions will be made, such as the creation of judicial review, and important names will be mentioned, such as Chief Justice John Marshall and President John Adams. Sit back and watch this episode to learn all you need to know about Marbury versus Madison. Introducing former President Alex Higa, who will give you all the knowledge you need to know about this case.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Alex Higa, and now it's time for the facts of the case. In John Adams' final days as president, he was rushing nominees through Congress in order to get them appointed before he left office. These appointments included 23 justices of the peace, or judges for lower federal courts, many of whom took strong Federalist positions. Although they were confirmed by Congress, their commissions had to be physically delivered to the justices by the Secretary of State, John Marshall. But by March 4th, 1801, as Thomas Jefferson, a Democratic Republican, took office, this paperwork had not arrived. Jefferson instructed his Secretary of State, James Madison, to only deliver the commissions to the judges that he liked. Thus, one person who did not receive his appointment was William Marbury. Marbury filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court under the Judiciary Act of 1789, which stated the Supreme Court had the power to issue writs of mandamus, or orders to perform a special duty, including handing out the completed Justice of the Peace commissions.
Thanks, President Higa. This will lead us to the case. It is now time to introduce the founder of Government and Economics, Corey Chung. Corey will be giving you each side of the argument in this case.
Hi, I'm Corey Chung, the person who created the topic, Government and Economics. Now that you have heard the quick facts and everything you need to know about the background of the case, it's time to hear about the arguments from each side. From Madison's side of the argument, let's go to the thought bubble. Madison exclaimed that Marbury's appointment to his position was invalid, as his commission was not delivered before President Adams' term ended. Madison also argued that the appointment of commissions was a political issue and not a judicial one. Hence, the Supreme Court should not be deciding this case, and it should be instead left up to lower courts. Along the same lines, Madison additionally stated that this case should be under appellate, not original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, meaning that it should be tried in lower courts and gradually work its way up to the Supreme Court if needed. Marbury's perspective was completely different. In his eyes, his argument was completely valid due to the fact that his commission to become the Justice of Peace of the District of Columbia was issued by the former president, meaning that it did not matter that it still had not gotten delivered to him physically. He still had the right to go into this position. Additionally, since the new Secretary of State, James Madison, was an official of the executive branch, he was required to follow President Adams' commission. And, thanks to the Judiciary Act of 1789, the Supreme Court, quote, shall have power to issue writs of prohibition to the district courts when proceeding as courts of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, and writs of mandamus, in cases warranted by the principles and usages of law, to any courts appointed or persons holding office under the authority of the United States. If you are confused from this long and complex definition of the Judiciary Act, it essentially allowed the Supreme Court the power to order the commission to be delivered, or in other words, give the court the authority to issue a writ of mandamus against Secretary Madison. Lastly, Marbury argued that Article 3 states that the Congress can make exceptions to which cases have original jurisdiction to the courts, that this case specifically falls under original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Corey. It's time to hear the decision. But first, the mystery document. As always, I will guess the author of the document. Well, let's read this first.
The Constitution is either a superior, paramount law, unchangeable by ordinary means, or it is on a level with the ordinary legislative act, and like other acts, is alterable when the legislator shall please to alter it. If the former part of the alternative be true, then a legislative act contrary to the Constitution is not law. If the latter part is true, then the written constitutions are absurd attempts on the part of the people to limit power in its own nature illimitable. Certainly, all those who have framed written constitutions contemplate whether as forming the fundamental and paramount law of the nation, and consequently the theory of every such government must be that an act of legislator repugnant to the Constitution
is void. Let me think. I'm going Terrence Marshall. I'm going Terrence Marshall for this one.
Terrence Marshall's a LSU wide receiver. I think you got the wrong time period.
No, dude. It's got to be something Marshall.
It is. Do you want me
Alex,
to
you
tell
want to help me out?
In fact, that was the Supreme Court opinion of Chief Justice John Marshall.
John Marshall.
So close. His decision answered the three main questions of the case. Should William Marbury and the other nominees get the jobs they were promised? Can justices sue in court to get their jobs? And does the Supreme Court even have the authority to say whether they could have their jobs or not? To answer the first question, the court stated that Jefferson was illegally withholding a completed legal commission. Second, the justices could, in fact, sue the court to get their jobs. To the third question, it was actually a bit more complicated. Under the Judiciary Act, the Supreme Court did have the power to issue writs of mandamus. However, because the Judiciary Act contradicted Article 3 of the Constitution, the court ruled it was unconstitutional. In doing so, the Supreme Court gave itself the power of judicial review, making it far more powerful and influential in the federal system of checks and balances.
Wow, he really is a sneaky genius. Finally, an open letter to John Marshall. You took your own power away just to give yourself more power? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have to worry about studying foundational court cases in AP Gov or reading boring Supreme Court opinions just to finish the script for this project. Thanks a lot, and you really blew it. Sincerely, Sam. Now that's our episode. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.